Good evening. I would like to call to order this Brunswick City Commission work session on Wednesday, February 15, 2023. We have up for discussion an amendment to alcohol license ordinance, City Attorney Court.
I can give everybody a moment. That works. There you go. Right. For tonight's work session, we just to give some procedural background. In 2018, the city of Brunswick essentially repealed and replaced the entirety of its alcohol ordinance. We did so because there were several antiquated items in there. The state law had changed significantly, and we had several new businesses in downtown Brunswick that required an ordinance change. Since then, since 2018, and since the city reinstituted the alcohol ordinance, the state has continued to sort of flow with the times, changing their own state laws, and subsequently through COVID, there's been some additional issues that I think the state has attempted to address. So we are bringing it back. This is an ordinance amendment that has been in the works since 2020. It was in a similar form presented to the commission, I believe it sometime towards the end of 2020, or perhaps 2021. I can't recall exactly. It was deferred at that point. The law has changed again. So we're bringing it back with significant changes. These are changes that are, I think, brought forth from staff, from a practical standpoint of how we implement the ordinance and what changes we see we might need to be made. From obviously experiences in the past couple of years related to COVID and the new laws, and as well as sort of a community driven need. New businesses continue to arise, and there's new, components that need to be addressed in our ordinance. If you notice, you do have a color copy and there are page numbers at the bottom. So I think we're off to a good start so far. But I'm just gonna have to go through the entirety of it, and I'd like to hear back, some feedback. This is a discussion item only. It is not for a first reading today, but I think ideally we'd like to look to see if the commission wishes to go forward with it, to have it first and second reading being the meetings in March, first and second meeting in March. So we could have a first reading in that first meeting in March, second meeting in March, and for approval on that second meeting.
So would both of those have a public hearing component?
Yes. Yep. And it would be open for public comment in between the two, of course. So beginning with the definitions, one of the first things that we add will be something that I'll discuss throughout, and we'll get more more specific as we get to that section. Alcoholic beverage caterer. Catering has been something that we've had multiple requests by license holders in the county, license holders in the city, those that might be outside of our jurisdiction. The county does have an alcohol beverage catering section of its ordinance. So as a result, we've looked at the counties. We've tried to, of course, do some uniformity, some reciprocity to make sure that what we're looking at and doing in this ordinance will hopefully work and allow for some flexibility and how that's done within the city. So alcoholic beverage caterer is a new definition. Authorized catered function, also a new definition. These will all be, discussed more in detail as we get to the catering section. A beer specialty shop. You'll notice in these definitions, there'll be two things called specialty shops, beer and wine specialty shops. Those are items that similar jurisdictions are now allowing these classifications. It would be somewhere that you would be allowed to sample or have a glass of wine, and then also purchase a packaged, unopened container of that particular wine or beer and exit with it. So it's somewhat of a hybrid
tasting.
Right, on premise, off premise situation. There's currently 2 businesses operating in the county at the moment that fall within that type of classification, and we have some interest in the city. There's I think a person interested in opening a similar business in the city. So we've taken a look at that and included it in our new ordinance. Brewery, that is a holdover. 2018, we added breweries to our alcohol ordinance. It was just, I missed it. We need to have a definition of brewery in there. So this is the added definition. It's from state regulations. Distillery is the same situation. We did not define brewery and distillery when we added them as classifications. That's all for that page.
We did all of that when we did the growler.
That's correct. Yep. With the full rollout, we added all of those things. Moving to page 5. There's this is part of the new state law that pertains to delivery in the sale of alcohol. Packaged goods retailer. It's a meaning defined in state law. There's certain classifications as your retail sale of beer, retail sale of wine, and there's requirements that you must meet in the state law that allows you to then submit and provide for the delivery of alcohol. So the purchase of alcohol via online app or something along those lines, and then delivering it to the end user. That will be discussed later on in the ordinance because there's significant restrictions and requirements that you must meet to be able to do that. But it does require a definition to be placed in this section. Next page, on page 6, special event venue. That is something that we've seen occur most recently in the county. Again, I think it was in 2021, they added a new classification that allows for a special event venue to apply for and obtain its own alcohol license for on-premise consumption. The way you obviously see that as it's defined, there are certain requirements you must meet to become a special event venue. There's also going to be significant, I don't want to say restrictions, but regulations related to the location of special event venues and how they're zoned. So part of this ordinance, I'm also working with John Hunter to make sure that we're taking care of the zoning issues. We'll talk about it more as we get through this, so that the work that John is doing on the planning and zoning ordinance, which I think everybody's aware, there's a massive rewrite going on with that as well, will incorporate the things we're doing here. The next is a tasting event. Tasting event is something that's defined. There's a new definition of it in the state law. It's an interesting definition. If you notice, it says means an event at a licensed retail packaged liquor store. Tasting events defined by state law it appears to be restricted to those that occur at a liquor store. That is OCGA 3-15-2. So to have a tasting, there is a notice requirement to the city, but it is in only those that are licensed as packaged retail liquor stores. Just an interesting component from state law. Wine specialty shop, as I discussed earlier with beer specialty shop, is a business that allows the sale by the drink for wine consumption on the premises, and also allows for a package to be taken off. Okay. So there will be changes to the classes on page 7.
City Attorney, can I ask a quick question?
Yes.
Going back, and I know some of these, I'm sure 2 of these may be answered. The first one on page 2, authorized catered function. Does that in any way affect like food trucks?
So food trucks are licensed and regulated by their own ordinance.
Okay.
In a similar situation to a caterer, it's my understanding that if a food truck wishes to dispense alcohol, then they would need to have a brick and mortar location that is underlying holding a license for the sale of alcohol for consumption on premise. So restaurants with food trucks that have brick and mortar locations and hold valid licenses, I believe, would be able to retail sale alcohol.
But it has to have approval already. On,
Through their brick and mortar.
Yeah, and so you'll see in the catering section, similar to the county, in order to get a catering license that allows you to sell at a special event catered function, you have to have a brick and mortar location with a valid alcohol license. That is the county, that's a regulation I've seen in multiple ordinances, not just Lane County.
The reason I asked that, and we can delve into it later because I don't want to hold us up because I'm sure it'll be in there. But I think one of the things that I don't want to do is if we are going to be in a space where a restaurant with a food truck can validly sell alcohol, then we are thereby creating a hurdle that someone who just owns a food truck is missing out on an entire industry that could change them and help them get their brick and mortar.
Right.
You know, so I think about things like Porch Fest. If, you know, I love Reed's, but if Reed's is able to sell wine and, you know, the shop that just sells the hamburgers and hot dogs can't sell beer, then we are somehow creating two separate classes.
Yeah, I think that because Reed's has a brick and mortar location that's gone through all the licensing requirements, they would likely be able to out of their food truck, but a mobile vendor will not.
Would not be, okay. The second one, and I just wanted to make sure I hear this right and maybe create the difference between the two. A tasting event. The reason I think about this is we're having more and more curated places come to downtown, Schroeder's being a place. I don't know if Schroeder's is a licensed retail package liquor store.
No.
So they couldn't do a wine tasting, and that's under state law?
That's OCGA 3-15-2. That was a point of discussion. You know, I've been working with the city manager, Matthew Hill, the deputy marshal, chief of police. We've all sort of been workshopping this, but I was sort of surprised when I saw that myself. I don't know.
well, it's really complicated.
Yeah, I don't know why you would provide tasting event at a liquor store. I'm not really sure.
Because my initial thing is like, I've been to tastings at North Georgia wineries.
Now, they would classify differently. They would classify as a winery as defined by state law, and they have special, similar to a brewery or a distillery, they have completely separate laws that would allow them these tasting events.
But to go back to what the mayor was saying, let's just take, for example, Schroeder's,
Mhm.
who has eatery, they have a shop. They have an alcohol license on premises consumption. No, they don't.
Sales, off-premise, retail sales, beer and wine.
Okay, so if they have a wine tasting dinner event,
That's,
technically they can't do that.
that's how we will, I'll obviously note that to look into it further. But that is how again, that's how I read the state law, and it specifically, I think I pulled that definition from the state law, a licensed retail package liquor store. As set forth in OCGA 3-15-2. But we'll look into it further and see if there's, the ability to provide some flexibility there.
Yeah, because my thought is, and maybe this is where the mayor was going, is if this is adopted, these changes and amendments are adopted, then would we automatically go back to some of those approved alcohol licensees and say, the ordinances have changed, you wish to do blah, 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 you need to come back and update your liquor license.
Warning in progress.
Yeah,
I think it should be a grace period that you could allow them opportunities because this is mandated by the state, right?
These are the definitions provided by the state.
State law.
So and they're writing as fast as they can. I think when we were in our last meeting, the last time that some of these state laws had been amended were in like the 90s. And then as you look forward, it's amended in 2016, 18, 2020, 21, 21, and 2022. So as we look at these, and as we try to address these things in our ordinances, and I don't think it's a bad thing that the state is creating more opportunity for businesses to create, new classifications and do these things. So the city is attempting, I think we are trying our best to keep up with those allowing the distillery, the breweries, and then trying to address what has just come out. Well, not just come out, but came out last year in these new laws for delivery. And as we look, obviously, there's an increased interest in catering. Those questions are constant as to how we're addressing that. Amy, I don't think she's here tonight because there's not a license on the agenda, but she and I speak very often as to how these questions should be handled and who we need to talk to about handling them.
Because I would think most of them are sort of entrepreneurial ventures,
Yep.
Which we want to encourage, and we don't want to put hurdles unachievable, but things are changing rapidly, so we do need to. If we make the changes, to be able to go back and say, we've made these changes, do you want to amend or update or
Right.
reapply or whatever they would have to do.
I'm sure we can talk to licensees to see, some of the changes. Even though we're creating new classifications, most of the seeded businesses are probably appropriately licensed as is. And then if there's new ones that would meet these, they would need to come in and of course get the new license. And that's where we are in the review right now, is these classifications and how we address those. And I do think some of the changes we make to these classes also assist those who currently are licensed in the expense and how flexible the city will allow now for them to obtain licenses. And I'm speaking on page 7 right now. And if you look at the changes that are highlighted there, Class A has now been changed from retail liquor, beer, and wine package. That is something we've heard over and over again. Why is there not a singular classification to allow for retail liquor, beer, and wine package? And there should be a consumption on premises. If you look at number 5, that adds consumption on premises, liquor, beer, and wine. In the past, you have to pay, almost double to obtain both licenses as you come forward, when in reality, the services that we provide to, process the applications, are extremely similar. So that's something that we heard from, I think, some of the businesses looking to come into the city, and some of those that are already licenses. Could you take a look at the classes? Could you, sort of streamline one that would allow for all? And then if you notice on number 4 and number 8, they've also asked if there's a possibility to do, singular licenses. If you only wanted to open a wine bar, for example, that would be 8D3, consumption on premises, wine only. You wouldn't have to pay the additional cost related to the beer. So we've sort of broken those out, and then we've added new ones at the bottom: 16, 17, and 18. 16 being caterer, 17 being specialty shop, beer or wine, and then 18 amenity license. And we'll talk about that a little bit later on in the ordinance amendment. And if you look at page 8, under classifications, because we've been looking at the state law, there's also a new subparagraph allowing for delivery permits. You'll see there that it's governed by new section 3-8.2. So they'll have to that's a requirement to get a separate delivery permit if they wish to go through the process of providing for the delivery of alcohol.
That's like DoorDash and all.
Okay, so it's local.
Drizzly, I think, is one of them. Yeah, it's going to be local. So we've also had to adjust our fees to address the classes. So where you see the classes 1 through 18, the fees are associated there. They match across the same 1 through 18. They provide the fee for the processing of each. There is a change to number 13, hotel, to provide for a license fee that would be similar, depending on what the hotel was seeking, to consumption on premises, whichever they select, whether it be liquor, beer and wine, or beer only, wine only, whichever of those they select, they pay the associated fee. Because hotels are specifically allowed under ordinance for an on-premise consumption license.
We're getting ready to get a hotel too.
And
We
that's
are there.
sort of the administrative.
Brian, what do you do if you're a shop owner and you want to have some hospitality in your shop on First Friday, like wine?
That's it. Not a DBA sanction, do that.
So that would be the amenity license. So that's one of the new classifications we've added.
So each shop would have to apply for that.
That's correct. And it'd be,
They only serve any kind of.
that's correct.
How much would an amenity license cost?
$500 for the year.
Well, that's very nominal. Let's go for 750. I'm just, kidding. I think 500 is more than adequate. More than adequate.
All right. Typographical changes on page 10.
Friday hospitality.
On page 11, under I, there's a new section I. So page 11 has started the section of application where it sets forth what is requirement to submit an application within, for the city's alcohol licenses. This is something that I think that has been a result of the recent questions by the commission. It was also a suggestion by the chief of police. We do have a section in our code, 3-28, that is presently in the code that requires employees to be trained. So the chief asked that we add as a part of the application process, some sort of submission or certification that when you apply, you will have your employees trained to, there's a specific training program for the purposes of underage sale, the sale of alcohol, however that applies, whether it be on premise or off premise, submit something showing that you're going to have training.
Did you mean that to be I or L?
That is L. I apologize.
Okay.
L. Sorry about that.
I think that's great. I'd rather be proactive than reactive.
On page 12. This is another suggestion from the chief of police, and I think I would agree with it. Under number 3, any licensee who has been convicted of 3 violations of the ordinances. Prior to that, it's any person. I think what we have to do in order for the city commission to take these matters up when they come before you is to say, the license attaches to the property. It's, the licensees can transfer the names if they need to. But if a licensee attached to the property violates that ordinance 3 times, then it's prohibited to be issued. So, a person comes and goes. I think that we've seen recently that some of the businesses where there was underage sales, the business terminated the employee immediately. I mean, I think they can make an argument now that they don't have anybody in their employ or there's not a person at the licensed establishment that violated the ordinance. However, I think we need to look at that and treat it as a violation of the license at that location as opposed to the person who you don't get to reset even though you've had a violation.
But that happens.
Yep.
That's happening.
Yes, yes. Number 14 is something that I think is, page 14. We are now in code section 3-6, which is consideration for issuance. So the application has now gone through the process. It's before the city commission for approval. Part of what we've tried to work into this these new sections is something that I think has come up recently through a discussion. If you look at H, an application for a new license shall contact the appropriate neighborhood planning association to present the license for consideration. I think it's important to note, this does not give the MPA the ability to stop a license. It just meets that requirement that they have been notified of it. And also, I think it's important to note that there has to be a component that if the applicant has made an attempt to go to an MPA, but has been unsuccessful in having, a meeting set or anything along those lines, that they still have the ability to take the application to the city commission level, because I think it is a right, since the MPAs are not codified, but I do think it's now a requirement. It's in the ordinance that step be taken before it reaches the commission level. So you would either have a letter from the MPA stating they met with us, or there's some certification through the city's MPA office or something along those lines that come to the commission to say, we have taken the appropriate steps to make that contact. For whatever reason, that there was no action taken, but we still have the right to present to you our application.
Is there anything in here that says they have to show proof of an email or whatever the
Yes,
was that They went through.
Yep, so if they do, they can submit to the city's community development department and show their attempts, and the community development department can issue a notification to the city commission that, yes, they've taken the steps necessary to contact the MPA and that there was no result.
And can that be initiated through the community?
It is, it is.
Yeah, because you can send me an email, and I have no knowledge of it, or may not receive it, may go junk or trash.
That is the intent of the section. I actually don't think that's written in there, but I'll make sure it is.
And then I like this too, because this will address the saturation of these type businesses into low income areas. And so that's been my main concern, is saturation of these businesses in certain areas.
And I mean, I think it is important to note that there is discretion built into the ordinance as it is for the city to be able to consider the public health and welfare of the community. I think this just goes further on to help in that process. Underneath new section 8, I is a prohibition of bringing an alcohol license back over and over again for a particular period of time. So if you've been denied or it's been revoked by the city of Brunswick, you have to wait 1 year before bringing it back. I've seen that. We looked at that. That was something brought up, I think, by Commissioner Kaysen probably about 2 years ago. It is a provision in many other cities' ordinances, so we've added it. All right, transfers, the previous ordinance, I think was extremely restrictive as to the transfer of a license. It arose recently when there was the unexpected death of a licensee in the city. The heirs stepped forward to try to take and of course, keep the business running to help pay debts, liabilities. We assisted them in getting it transferred over. But the former ordinance was rather restrictive as to how long they could operate. And with, I don't know, if, going through the probate of an estate, I think it gave them 90 days to operate and then they had to close. The probating of an estate is going to take more than 90 days. So we have added new flexibility in the transfer of a licensee, or excuse me, of a license. And it would still require, if you're transferring it to a new licensee that is not otherwise gone through the process, you're going to have to put them through the process of background check, fingerprinting, and all those types of things. And it also assesses a transfer fee of $100. And then the cost of $375 to do the background check and the fingerprints, and that's on page 16.
So was there a specific time period that it was extended or everything?
No, the idea there would be to allow them to get it extended as soon as possible, and then they would be able to operate as the transferee of the license. So in the example I gave, that the heirs had, temporary letters testamentary, they would be able to get that. They're going to have the power to conduct business from the probate court. They're not going to have finalized probate. So the city would allow them to transfer as long as they met all the requirements and operate the business until such time as they finalize and then probably sell or transfer it to new companies.
So with that, so you said there is no definitive of the time frame.
No, it would be like, right, it would be like the sale of the business, like the new transferee, if they desire to do so and got the final, approval by the court, they could operate the business in perpetuity.
Okay, that's what I was about to say,
Yep.
because, probate processes will take.
But they have to show proof that probate is.
As approved.
Yeah, is in motion.
Well, yeah, in order to take the business over, yes, they'd have to get everything finalized, and that would be more of like a private side corporate matter than it would be a city matter. It was just the idea that if, you have an unexpected death of the license holder and there are debts or there are employees to pay, the requirement that they cease operating the business immediately, it, begins a rather detrimental effect on everybody involved.
But looking even further down the line on that, because of processes that can take so long in probate court, we don't want to have to deal with that. You have an extended probate process And then you're looking 3-4 years down the line and these people still have not done what they need to do. So I guess for me, I'm saying there needs to be some definitive at some point on this.
Okay.
So when you say reasonable time frame, what does that mean? So, because some people reasonable could be 24 months, to some it could be 48. So we need to be definitive in that and not have it to be extended for such a time frame, because
Okay.
it can take a long time according to the complexity of the case.
All right, I'll make those changes. All right, I'll do some research and then bring a change back for consideration. On page 17. This is under section 3-7, general regulations pertaining to all licensees. Under D, failure to open, we've seen this recently, especially with the delays in construction caused by COVID and other various issues. The new revision would allow a holder of a license issued here under, meaning they've gotten their license, but they haven't opened yet, may apply. That says Apple, but it means it's supposed to say apply. I'll make that change. For a one-time extension of 45 days upon approval of a hardship waiver by the city commission. So they would be able to come back without losing the fees and the costs associated with it. You know, they've already gone through the process. It's been approved one time at the level of the city commission. They're still in, construction, or they are very close to the end of opening their doors. The city commission can allow for a one-time 45. And I think it should be limited to 90 days. There is a reason, of course, for a failure to open in there. You don't want somebody going sort of staking claim to any other areas that could, let's go get an alcohol license. Now you've distanced them out of certain things. You must open and actually operate a business. Page 20 is amenity license. This is the license that you were discussing about First Friday. It is new section J, certain businesses seeking amenity licenses. There are certain rules and regulations that they'd have to abide by, including the zoning. So they'd have to be in a specific zoning district. Most likely, we haven't quite finalized these zoning districts because, John, they're still going through the process of the planning and zoning. So I don't want to focus on the nomenclature in that section, but they would be a non-eating establishment offering beer and wine as an act of hospitality only, and it must be clearly a secondary function as to the business. It must be only 2 days per calendar month, and they have to maintain a record of the days that they've operated. And they also are not allowed to serve more than a 1 ounce serving of wine or 12-ounce serving of beer to a person with a single business day. So it'd be like if you visit a store and you want to have a beer or a glass of wine while you shop, you're limited to that, and you can do it while you shop and then you're out the door. It's very much written around the idea of First Friday. So if there is further regulations as you look through this, and it might be everybody's first time at looking at it, so I just look for feedback on it, what your thoughts are on that.
Quick question,
Yes.
and it doesn't really matter to me either way, but it says that it can offer it as an act of hospitality, but does it clearly state whether they can charge for that act of hospitality?
They cannot.
They cannot.
They cannot.
Okay.
I believe it's in there. But I'll double check. I mean, the name itself is amenity.
Right. And I was like, I understand the word is clearly defined as such, but
We'll
if
make
it-
sure it's defined.
Yeah.
Mhm. That gets us to the new, I'm going through some of this, I don't want to say quickly, but I know we have time is of the essence. That's the next thing is wine specialty or beer specialty shops. There are regulations on those. They can only operate 11 a.m. to 11 p.m. Monday through Saturday. And there's no alcoholic beverages for consumption on the premises may be sold or served on Sundays, except for set forth in the New Year's Eve Sunday law. So it really just, the regulations to these specialty shops is really just time, place and manner. It's going to be 11 to 11, only Monday through Saturday. They are not eligible for Sunday sales.
So I have a question I almost don't want to ask, but I really have to, is with amenity sales or serving,
Right, no
Okay.
sales.
where does the responsibility lie to make sure that the customer, the patron is 21 years old or not?
It's written into the ordinance on number 7, so just underneath the section, that's all right, 21 at the top, number 7. I mean, they are subject, if they're going to apply for and receive this, they're going to go through a background check, and then they're going to be subject to, upholding the laws of the state of Georgia, which includes making sure that no one under the age of 21 years old is served alcohol within their business premises.
Okay,
And
thank you.
so. And the next section requires the administrative background check and the fee, the $500 fee we talked about. I'm sorry, that was for catering, but there is a $500 fee for the amenity license as
Okay.
well. The next are the two new classifications we have to address are the specialty shops. I talked about time, place and manner. The next is special event venues. This again, as I was sort of talking about, this ties a special event venue to its zoning so that, you have to look at your underlying zoning and determine whether or not, and I think that we'll be able to assist in this, but event venues should only be in places where the zoning would allow it. I mean, to allow them to get a alcohol license should subject them to the same zoning and distance requirements as, all their other businesses. So the county tied it to special zoning districts. We don't have a special zoning district necessarily for this purpose. So the thought there would be to go and look at the zoning. As I work with John, it would be an enumerated or a conditional use, enumerated permitted use or conditional use in certain zoning areas that are, commercial in nature, downtown corridors, Norwich, those types of areas. And then that brings me to catering. So the new section 3-8.1 is alcoholic beverage catering. It's important to note, this is very, very similar to Glenn County's catering ordinance. We did that because of reciprocity. We knew that caterers would be looking to go. It's on page 21. It's the next section 3-8.1. As I kind of stated earlier, I think we talked about this when we talked about the definition of catering. To get a catering license, you have to have brick and mortar. You have to have a location that is otherwise licensed to sell on-premise consumption of whatever alcohol you intend to sell at your catered events. The other regulations are similar to a restaurant's requirements for an alcohol license. 50% of your sales from food. You're subject to your distance requirements. You're subject to your hours and days of operation. I would point out on page 22 at the top, off-premise license issued by other jurisdictions. So we do have a component in there that if you can provide proof that you are duly licensed, for example, if a caterer is coming down from Savannah or McIntosh or from Jacksonville, and they can provide proof, and it's similar to something we do with the food truck ordinance, proof that you are licensed, you have all your applicable licenses in your home jurisdiction, you can come forward, get a catering license and cater a function in the city of Brunswick. Oh man, I'm over time. The remainder deals with the requirements of an event, a special caterer event, and an event permit application. I don't want to rush. We still have quite a bit to go. I think I'd probably suggest for the catering section, since it's a brand new and it's a rather large section, that if the commission was able to review it and then get back to me with any feedback, I'd be more than willing to take a look at it and provide those revisions. Real quick before I end, I think it's important to note that on page 25, that addresses, and I should say this on delivery, this is a decision for the commission to make. This is not a mandate from the state. It's a law that is permissive if the local jurisdiction provides for it. So the state is saying, we're going to allow this. We're at a state level. We're okay with it. However, the controlling decision will be left to the locality in which you're seeking to deliver alcohol. And the same goes for catering, I mean, essentially. So if you look at page 25, home delivery of alcohol, what I did there is adopt the code sections from the state law 3-3-10 and 3-3-11. There's some pretty stringent regulations in the state code as to how you can deliver alcohol. You have to maintain a database as to who you're delivering it to, maintain proof that you've certified that the person that is receiving the alcohol is over the age of 21. I mean, there's, they have obviously regulations in place to ensure that this isn't abused. So that if the city were to allow it, I think it'd then be a pretty tough decision on the underlying business owner as to whether or not they want to go through that, jump through those hoops to do it, but it's being done elsewhere, so. The last page, 26 or page 26, probably one of the more important or unique changes being made. This was a change that was brought forth in 2020. It was discussed by the city commission in the past, and we were asked to kind of go back and rework and look at it. It's an open container provision that provides for more like in Savannah of whether or not you want to do an open container allowable area within the city. It's got geographical bounds in there, west by the eastern sidewalk of Bay Street and east by Union Street, from G Street north to the northern side of G Street to the southern portion of Jekyll Square. Thank you. I think that this is probably one of the provisions that's included. A lot of these other provisions, again, are driven by community, new businesses, those types of things. At staff, as we try to practically work our way through the ordinance, we see things that need to be tweaked to better, the MPA type things, the transferring, those types of things are all, I think, requests by staff. This, I think, is a decision, again, a commission level decision. So I would ask for some, specific feedback on that as we sort of work our way through to see if this is a decision the commission wants to make. As you know, at the moment, there is an open container allowance during city sponsored events and
Porch Fest.
Porch Fest,
Does this
First
cover-
Friday. So this would open it up to hours of operation from 12:30 to 12:30 to, that's right, 12:30 PM to 12:30 AM. In those locations, there's regulations similar to Savannah. You must have a specific cup, cannot be bottles, glass, has to be translucent, has to be limited to, I believe, 16 ounces, I'm sorry. So if you could put some attention to that, let me know the thoughts on that. If there's any questions right now, I'd be happy to answer them. I just don't want to run over too much.
Yeah, I have a quick question on the page 26B. The southern boundary of Howe Street, that really doesn't go all the way to the end of what's considered commercial. So my question would be, should it go to George? I'm
That's
just throwing that out there.
Okay.
So Matthew, if you want to give that further consideration, because we do have some commercial businesses on south of Howe that, like Zino Furniture and some other places that are doing events, and so I just thought I'd toss that out. Just to make sure that we're including the area that would be most applicable. For them.
I don't think this covers a whole bunch of what happened down there during Porch Fest. I think you really need to take another look and
Event.
it was deployed all over the south end. And you had people with beverages in all kind of containers. It was pretty wide open.
okay.
And if you're gonna have people that are gonna sponsor a band on the porch, I mean, if they're down on 4th Avenue down there, what are you gonna do?
Yep.
I mean, you need to be sure that you've got it covered, because this thing was huge this year. It really was.
Sure.
I mean, it was totally awesome. This wouldn't take care of it, not even Julie, what Julie's mentioned is certainly right. The George Street certainly needs to be, you were almost on Albany Street with events. Probably were on Albany Street. I didn't get to all of them. But I covered most of them, so. I don't think you went east of Albany Street, however. I didn't see any that way. I think you got a good start here, though.
Okay.
I really do.
Yeah, thank you.
Absolutely.
City Attorney Corey, as we look through this, when would you want edits back?
If we were shooting for the March time period, I'd like it, potentially by the end of next week. What I could do is I'll also send this out electronically to everyone so that y'all have it. I can send it in Word too, so if you wanted to look into it and you can provide some notes internally, that'd be fine. So I'll do that.
Perfect.
That's all I have.
Thank you. With that, we will bring our work session to a close. Thank you. We'll bring our work session to a close and now call to order our regularly scheduled Brunswick City Commission meeting for Wednesday, February 15, 2023. If you could all please stand, we will now have the invocation and pledge of allegiance, and Commissioner Roll will introduce our pastor for the day.
Tonight, we have Pastor Kendall Shaw, who is a Brunswick native. He serves as the lead pastor and founder of Empowerment City Church. Pastor Kendall Shaw, you can come to the podium.
Thank you for the opportunity to come and commune. Let's bow our heads. Father and sovereign God, we thank you for this opportunity to come as we invoke your presence in this meeting and every decision that we make, realizing that these decisions have long-term implications that will reach not only our children, but even to our children's children. We bless the men and women who serve these various capacities, bless their service and their time and their commitment. We pray, oh God, that your presence will be with us tonight. Lead us and guide us. In Jesus' name we pray. Amen.
Amen. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic which stands one nation under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Pastor Shaw, it is good to have you with us this evening. It was great to spend some time with you and your wife as you receive your doctoral stoles. You have an amazing choir, an amazing church, and doing amazing things in our community. So we thank you for being with us this evening. We will now move forward to the adoption of the February 15, 2023 regularly scheduled meeting agenda. Do I hear a motion?
Make a motion that we approve the agenda as presented.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the agenda is adopted. We will now move on to the public comment period with Mr. Johnny Hillary to address the commission regarding flooding on Stonewall Street in Dixville. Mr. Hillary. Good evening. How you doing? Good.
Well, my concern is we're running out of time for this season, this flooding season going out. I checked up, trying to check up and see where we're standing. Actually, with putting them posters out there threw me off, tell you the truth. I thought we were working on it then. But anyway, I went to the city managers and to get some information on it. They brought up check valve. But the man did know what, not check valve, he brought up gate valve. But he did know what check valve is. It's a difference. Gate and check are two different things, okay? And then the one I proposed was check valves, trying to stop the flooding, because like I said, in Dixville, it's the worst. Every time that thing get flooded out, the park's flooded out, the churn gotta wait till it dry out. Not only that, not only that, if we keep on waiting, putting it off, we don't know where our priorities are. So like I said, if we wait too late, we ain't gonna be able to do it during hurricane season because it's all flooded. They can't work them, they can't get it done then. If we can't get it done this year, when can we get it done? And that's my point. I mean, the people in Dixville, they might be renting. The part that's irrelevant. It's the danger and the stuff that goes on with that. You know, like I said, how would you like to wake up 2 o'clock in the morning and water running in your house? You know, and like I said, it could be stopped, and that could help us. Because I done gave you the example, the pump mill. Like I said, it worked there. Now it didn't stop the flooding, but that water had to jump that curb and get there. It didn't cover no Honda, with all you could see was the roof. When it came through that drain, it flooded the whole parking lot up, and all you could see was the top of a Honda. Okay. All I'm saying is, where's our priorities? Is it to the people or some of the stuff out here? But that's irrelevant. Right now, where's our priorities? Can we get something done before the flooding starts, or do we have to wait till something bad happens before we get it done? Because it's been going on for years. Like I say, they already know the procedure, they know to get out, whatever, when the hurricane's coming. But even high flood tides is flooding them out. I can see if it was a hurricane, that's one thing. But just high tides, and it's getting higher and higher. Global warming do exist, whether you believe it or not. And I just wonder where are we with it? Because I ain't getting no satisfaction from what I'm hearing. Don't nobody know nothing. Can't nobody tell me nothing. And it's like, to me, it's serious. I don't know what to mean. Because like I say, they suffer the most because they're the lowest ones. Not for the level of the water coming up through them drains.
Mhm.
And that's what's hurting us. And that check valve is proven it could do it. It could do the job. Where are our priorities?
Yes, sir. I want to open it up to the commission if they have any questions for you before I jump in. I want to ask you a couple questions, Mr. Hillary. Number one, thank you for coming up here and having a conversation with us. When you talk about this area, what streets specifically are you talking about?
All around the park. All that's flooded out because that's where the drains are. Wherever the drains are, that's where the flooding is at. It ain't going, the water is backing up through the drains, flooding Dixville out, mainly. Now me, it got to rain and flood me out. But it's the drains where all that's coming from. It ain't the rain, it ain't the river, it is the river, but like I said, it's coming through the drains. See, when they put all that stuff in there in the 80s, I was there, all right? They redid the roads. They rigged all that stuff up for that water to come to my house, to my area. You ain't got no drains in the 1500 block. You got them all in the 1600 block. And right over there where Zion Church had it now. I understand for the drains to work, you got to bring the water to the low level. I understand how that works. But you wasn't expecting that water to come back this way. And that's what's hurting us. It wasn't no global warming in the 80s when they put that stuff there. And some of Dixville didn't have no drains for the south until the church came through there one time and we told them about they ain't got no drainage down there. Then they put drainage down there. Like I said, it's the drains, the mistake. It wasn't no mistake, because like I said, nobody knew nothing about no global warming back then. And the floods weren't that high. They jumped the curb, but they was right there on Lanier Boulevard. But now they ain't jumping the curb, they coming straight to that drain, through that drain. They ain't jumping that curb no more. Won't fly on high tides. And that's the part.
When you're saying check valves, what do you mean by that?
All right. A check valve is designed for the water to run one way. I was a ship engineer. We had to deal with check valves on a regular basis. We're talking about 3,000 pounds of steam pressure, okay? But that check valve closed, that's over with. It won't let that bad boy back up. So if we put it on the outlet of those drains, out there in the marsh, if we put them check valves there, it'll let that water go out. But it'll take, I don't know what, to come back through them drains. But like I say, 3,000 pounds of steam pressure, them check valves hold, they work. And like I said, I understand it wasn't purposely done. You understand? Because like I said, nobody knew nothing about global warming in the 80s, because I've been there since 76, where I'm living at now. When they put them drains in there, it had to be in the 80s. All right? It was all good until the water started backing up, till the tides start getting higher than they normally do. And that's where our problem is.
Okay.
Them check valves will hold, they will work, they done it. Like I said, they still jump, the water have to jump the curb in the parking lot in Port Mill now, but it don't come up them drains no more.
Mm.
And that's what the check valve does. It allow that water to run one way and one way only. And it take a monster to make that bad boy open up.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. I want to open it up. Any additional questions? If not, I want to tell you what I'll do is I will get,
Yeah.
go ahead.
Don't
No,
mean
go
to
ahead.
interrupt. Yeah. Either one, set it up for me to be. Yeah. All right, now I talked to him.
Mhm.
And like I said, I did my homework.
Mhm.
I talked to him and everything. And and it's on the agenda. And I understand nothing gonna be done right now.
Mhm.
Yeah, I mean, just because I say it work and all that, I understand that. But when I went to the city manager and he brought that gate valve up, that's what got me here. So, see, we already know the gate valve don't work because somebody got to close that gate valve. We already know that don't work. And that's why I'm here, because like I said, it don't seem like it's getting through. Where's our priorities? They can't talk to them, but I'm gonna talk to them. And like I say, they the one hurt the most. They hurt worse than me. See, because like I said, it ain't gotta be no hurricane. And they be hurting when that tide get real high. And like I said, the children gotta wait till it dry out before they can play in the park. And ain't no hurricane.
Mhm.
And it's a simple solution. Where are our priorities?
You keep saying where are our priorities, so I do want to answer that for you.
Okay.
I think we've done extensive research, not only throughout the city, and I'm sure the
Okay.
city engineer probably showed you
Okay.
our list that we are going through.
No, it ain't sure.
Okay, well, I will make sure.
I went there for that.
No doubt. I want to make sure I get you that list.
Okay.
And so that list has been built by engineers over years to build our most crumbling infrastructure. Because I think there are several areas throughout the city who have the same exact story of
Okay.
water jumping back and backing up over
Mhm.
curbs. And I think we are trying to tackle those things in a methodical way.
Like I said, I didn't think it, I don't mean to interrupt. I understand that this is not, I mean.
Yeah, and that's why I want
so
to, I
go
want
ahead,
to,
finish. I don't
show you.
interrupt
No, it's
you,
okay.
but I don't want you to think
It's
I
okay.
don't understand.
I totally understand.
Okay.
What I want to do is I want to take the time to show you that list. And then I will get city, to get our city clerk to set up some time for myself to come out and see the park with you in the areas that we're talking about, so we can wrap our heads around it.
But we gotta wait till it flood before you can see it.
No, I just want to see where you're talking about.
Okay, all right.
Yeah. So
that could be arranged.
yeah, we'll set that up. Does that sound good?
That sound good to me?
That's perfect. Well, are there any other questions or comments from the commission? And if not,
See you.
thank you, sir. I'll see you soon. Yes, sir. The next thing we have up are items to consider for,
I believe there was another public comment. I don't think.
oh,
it
I'm
made it
sorry, that's
Onto the
on-
agenda, I believe. Commissioner.
The city clerk is not here, and I think we normally have a sign up, but we didn't
Okay.
have it.
Okay.
So if you would allow for public comment.
Of course, Commissioner Booker, always
Doing this evening.
good. We also want to take a moment and Vice Chair Rafalski and Commissioner Clark, thank you for joining us as well. Commissioner.
Thank you all for allowing me to speak this evening. And I come on behalf of the Black Business League this evening to talk to you all. And I want to talk to you all about what you have been doing well. I know you get a lot of folk coming up complaining, but you all have been creating really a lot of opportunity for business development. And we want you to continue to do that. But we have some ideas. I guess we're okay. We want you all to work closer with the Black Business League, because we feel like while a number of things are going well, we see that there's going to be a grand opening for the hotel downtown in the county. Buc-ee's is coming. But the measurement for us of success is Black children. In the city, there's a census tract where almost 80% of the Black children live in poverty. And the unemployment rate is still pretty low. So the parents are working. That's not the issue. They're underemployed and don't seem to have the opportunity for home ownership, for business development. And I know the city is putting in place some programs and funding. And we want you all to continue to do that. We have some ideas about that. But what we want to do is to work on some larger projects, because we see that happening, but Black businesses are not getting an equity share of these projects going forward. So we have a simple request tonight, but I want to hand out something to you all, because we've been around for a while. Some of you all may not have heard about the Black Business League. And we've been around for at least 8 years. We talked with Chuck Scragg when he was over the EDA years ago. And he set aside $20,000 for us to do training. And he also brought in this consultant, Ms. Williams, to do, we can get these to do this report on minority business development. And so, and we've been working toward, one of the recommendations in this was to do a trusted advisor. We know we have the SBDC that's supposed to help out with business plans and all of that, but many of our folk, they need somebody to help them before you get to that, before you have the talk with the banker. And that's what we've been doing. And so one of the things that we'd like for you to consider is setting aside some funding for what we call a business navigator. We have that for social services, but we'd like for you to consider that. We also would like for you to consider authorizing the URA to work with us on a proposal for the development of the Overthorpe block. We have 2 certified developers that's willing to work with us. And so we would like to see that happen, but to make sure that Black businesses get an equity share of this project. And that's not been happening with these development projects downtown. And the last thing is to help to have staff work with us on creating a cultural district, with Albany Street being the center of that district. And so that we can help create these micro businesses in that area, in that space. And we think that that would help a great deal with economic development. So I don't want to take up too much time tonight, but I look forward to maybe talking more about these things, but I just wanted to put this before you all to consider. And I do hope that you all allow us to work with the URA and the staff to work on these projects.
Commissioner Booker, I want to say thank you for your work. I've had a chance to visit with the Black Business League and sit down and have conversations with you all. I appreciate what you're doing in our community. I want to ask a little bit about the Biz Navigator. And just so you tell me a little bit about what that means. I'm coming in, I'm a starting business.
Right, it helps out with helping folks to crystallize their ideas and to help them prepare to put them in a business plan, to ask the tough questions that sometimes when they go to talk to the SBDC or the banks, it's seen as negative instead of just doing business. And so we build a relationship with our folk, our members, and they kind of understand. So they accept the tough questions from us. because we help them process that. And we also, I forgot, these two folk are with our minority loan fund. We have $100,000 that's being committed to be loaned in our area from a CDFI, Community Development Financial Institution out of Albany. And this is our chairman and the board members for this fund, Angel Parlin and Brian Scott. And they work with us, of course, with BDL. So we are doing some great things, and we would like to continue work with the city to develop these programs and to make sure minorities businesses get their fair equity share of economic development here.
Chair, Vice Chair, anything you guys wanted to say?
Man.
That's perfect. Well, I know I don't have any more questions. Thank you all for coming out with us. Any questions from the commission? Hearing none, I'll make sure to get a written response over to you all.
All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Seeing no one else, we will move on to items to consider for approval. Consider approval of February 1st regularly scheduled meeting minutes. Do I hear a motion?
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes from February 1st, 2022.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. We will now move on to consider approval of resolution number 2023-04, recertification as a City of Ethics. City Manager McDuffie.
Good evening. The resolution for the City of Ethics is brought to you as a recertification. This was first done in 2015, and we kind of researched to look to see if we had renewed it, which the GMA, this is through the Georgia Municipal Association, and is supposed to be recertified every 4 years. So we are due for that recertification in 2023. So I am presenting this resolution to request that recertification, and also that the board subscribe to the principles as approved by the Georgia Municipal Association. Those principles are stated in the resolution as serve others, not ourselves, use resources with efficiency and economy, treat all people fairly, use the power of our position for the well-being of our constituents, and create an environment of honesty, openness, and integrity. And I ask for recertification and approval of this so that we can present this information to GMA and be restated as a City of Ethics for the state of Georgia.
Any questions from the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve the resolution number 2023-04 recertification as a City of Ethics.
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you. We will now move on to consider approval of resolution number 2023-05, pledging to practice and promote civility in the city of Brunswick. City Manager McDuffie.
Thank you again. This again is a program that is supported and provided by the Georgia Municipal Association. It is a program that they have noted as embrace civility. And one of the things that I think I am very proud of in our community is that we have shown civility. I mean, I haven't been here but almost 3 years. But our commission, you represent this community very well. As I, delve with other city managers, elected officials around the state, sometimes that doesn't come very easy. But for our commission, we have always embraced civility. So I think this is an easy ask, in my opinion, that we use this opportunity to show our citizens that we are in support of civility and we know that it's important in the governance of the city of Brunswick. The GMA, as I have on my screen, they define civility. They also show why civility matters for cities, which they say civil behavior and speech are critically important to healthy, functional, and respectful societies. They note a survey that was done in 2019 that, you know, based on national and local and state activities, that civility or incivility is a problem in our governments, and that cities need to plan to counteract the growing polarization and challenges that are caused by incivility. So this is the reason that they have promoted this program. And I think it's very important, especially in this community. You know, a couple of years ago, when we went through the Arbery trial, we showed the nation what civility is all about. And I think, you know, it's very important for us to stand up in this manner at this time. So I won't go through reading the entirety of this resolution, but I ask the commission to support this effort for us to embrace civility and show the state that we are a very civil government and community. Thank you.
Thank you. Any questions from the commission?
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 2023-05, pledging to practice and promote civility in the city of Brunswick, and happy to do that.
Second.
And a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you. And as a board member of GMA, I will definitely support and show that Brunswick is very glad to be a part of this in the state of Georgia. Thank you.
Thank
You know,
you.
we were leaders in this thing in 2015, getting it done.
Mm.
We were out there in front of it, and I'm surprised that it didn't get renewed. Thanks for doing it.
Next, we will consider approval of financial reports as of December 31st, 2022. Director Mills.
Good evening.
Good evening.
Have for you the December 30th. We're going to be around through the current budget year. You'll see in the general fund, year to date, we have revenue total expenditures of approximately 4.3 million. There was a loss for the month of December of approximately $507,000. But I do want to note that there were 3 pay periods in the month of December. Twice a year we have 3 pay periods, so I reason for that. The cash balance on hand as of December approximately $11 million. On our loss distributions year to date, we were at 9%, which equates to approximately $382,000 for the month of December 22, as compared to December 2021, we were about 7.58%, or approximately $50,000. On the second page, you have your SPLOST 6 expenses. If you look in the middle column there, you'll see as of December 31st, we expended $13.5 million on the SPLOST projects. We still have a cash on hand balance of $2.5 million. We will be going over very soon in the next month, probably, as we wind down on SPLOST 6, the areas where we had overages and we had some where we came in under budget and see about balancing all of those out. SPLOST, on the next page, SPLOST 5, there's still $3 million over there to set aside for the ladder truck, Norwood Street Commons. There's been no activity for the year over the income. There's a cash balance in that under $350,000. On the Roosevelt Harris Multi-Purpose Center Fund, we have a cash balance of $259, which we subsidize part of that money. Roosevelt Harris Multi-Purpose Center. So many people are cash balance in there generally. We have had total inflows of $222,000, expenditures of $201,000.
We have transferred over from the general funds to subsidize Roosevelt Harrison $145,000. The ARPA fund, we have total funds received since the instigation of approximately $9.3 million, $87,000 of that in the income that's earned. We've expended approximately $2 million. We have a cash balance still on hand in ARPA of $7.4 million. That's December 31st. Next page, sanitation fund. Operating income $1.1 million. We have a cash and hand balance $1.45 million. Expenditures for the month were $128,000 for active. Total expenditures for council $131,000. That month's about the same every month. Stormwater utility fund, we have a cash balance of $702,000. Expenditures of $981,000. There's the inflows of $1.1 million. We'll point out that there were some GMA leases in there. We've already made the big payments for the year. We pay those once a year and so those have already come out. Additional information, there were no additional animal expenditures for recreation departments. In traffic control, $17,000 expended in the month of December, which was for 3 crosswalks that apparently had to be followed at the same time. On the last page, to the Roosevelt Arts Center, expenditures for the month, a little over $14,000 year to date, $11,000. Literally, the expenditures in that, of course, are for salaries and wages.
Any questions?
None for me.
Hearing none, I'll open it for a motion.
Make a motion that we approve. The budget as presented.
Hearing a
Financial
first. Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye.
Aye.
Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes. Thank you, Director
you.
Mills. We will now move on to an item from Commissioner Kaysen. Discuss and consider for approval resolution number 2023-06 in support of protecting Okefenokee Swamp from mining. I'll turn it over to Commissioner Kaysen.
All right, I appreciate it. If Alice Kies is here, she is going to come up and going to entertain any questions or anything anybody wants to know about us doing a resolution for the swamp. Hi, Alice. Thank you for being here.
Thank you so much for the invitation to be here. I have a few remarks that I'm happy to share. Again, thank you for the invitation to be here to talk about one of my favorite places in the entire planet, the Okefenokee Swamp. How many here have had the pleasure of visiting the swamp?
Probably as a kid.
Excellent, excellent. So the Okefenokee is over 400,000 acres. It is recognized as a wetland of international significance. It's the largest freshwater, blackwater swamp in North America, and it's here in Southeast Georgia. It has peat bogs and really diverse habitats. My family and I have been visiting there for many years, and it's the best place to see North American alligators for sure. Fish and Wildlife Service designated it as a national wildlife refuge in 1937. And since that time, Okefenokee has really been a tourism driver. 300,000 annual visitors come there every year, and it contributes about $54 million to Georgia's economy. But those communities around the swamp are not the only ones that benefit from that tourism. Actually, it's those of us in Southeast Georgia that benefit significantly. Our own Convention and Visitors Bureau has done a fantastic job of advocating for Glenn County and Brunswick as an ecotourism hub. And it's really paying off. Visitors who flock here to go to our beaches and go to our wildlife areas also are the same visitors that venture out and go to Cumberland Island, go to Sapelo Island, and the Okefenokee Swamp. Friends of mine who have Airbnbs here say that oftentimes, many times, visitors who stay in their Airbnbs take day trips to the Okefenokee, which is only 45 minutes away, to Cumberland, to Sapelo, and that type of thing. So we are a hub. The uniqueness of the Okefenokee benefits all of Georgians, and that's not being, that isn't a factor that is not being missed by many organizations. In fact, right now, the Okefenokee is a strong contender for being designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, which is significant because it's recognized widely as a way to really acknowledge and increase global visibility for areas. So again, this would be a huge, if the designation is approved, it would be a huge driver and positive development for our region as a whole. But the importance of this Okefenokee is not just the swamp itself. The swamp is actually formed by a geologic feature that used to be the old shoreline of Georgia. It's known as Trail Ridge, and it runs about 120 miles from the Altamaha River all the way down to Stark, Florida. It's rich in heavy mineral sands, which include ores from which you can extract titanium, process, and then make titanium dioxide. So this has been a real draw for mining companies to actually go in and receive permits to extract those ores to process the titanium dioxide. The process includes digging a hole about 50 feet down into Trail Ridge, again, kind of the geologic dam of the entire eastern coast of the Okefenokee Swamp, and then digging up the sands, meshing them all together, and then eventually putting them back, disrupting the structure of that hydrologic dam itself. There's a lot of concern for the impact that mining will have on the structure of the swamp. Scientists have written letters of concern stating that if you affect that hydrologic dam, you could lower the water levels of the swamp, affecting habitat, increasing the likelihood of drought, and then also the likelihood of wildfires. The year after my family and I moved here, we here in Brunswick got a lot of smoke from one of the major wildfires that affected the Okefenokee Swamp. So again, this is a regional asset, but also regional threats. Today, communities around the Okefenokee have actually been passing resolutions that express their concern for the impact that mining will have, and asking our state legislators to consider protections for the swamp itself. One of the issues that is before the Environmental Protection Division right now is a particular mining company that is applying for permits to develop the first phase of a very large mine, and EPD is accepting public comments on that permit right now. But part of the concern from the communities has really raised awareness at the state level as well. And so right now, our General Assembly is considering House Bill 71, which is called the Okefenokee Protection Act. The Okefenokee Protection Act would protect that area of Trail Ridge right next to the swamp from future mining. It wouldn't have anything to do with the mining permit that is being processed right now by the Environmental Protection Division, but it would prohibit EPD from issuing mining permits in the future. Again, protecting the long-term integrity of the swamp. So we really appreciate the leadership of this commission for considering joining the voices of the local communities and commissions and city councils around the swamp and considering this resolution. I want to recognize several people who are here to support the passage of this resolution. A lot of organizations throughout the state, communities around have been, again, voicing their concern for the mine and voicing the need for protecting the swamp for the long haul. And I'd like to recognize the Georgia River Network, who is here, as well as Reverend Antoine Nixon, who's been one of our leaders from Folkestone. And they're happy to here to answer any questions that y'all might have, to join me to answer questions that you might have. So again, the resolution that's before you now addresses the three issues that I brought up: the support for the UNESCO designation for the regional benefit, ecotourism benefit, the concern that the community has for mining near the Okefenokee Swamp, and then also support for House Bill 71.
Comments and questions? Thank you so much.
You
Yes,
know,
sir.
I want to thank Alice for being here and doing this. And I also want to say that I don't think there's anything much more important than preserving the Okefenokee Swamp and being sure that it takes on the highest designation it can take on in the world. You know, it's there, and we don't want to jeopardize it in any way at all. I know that the minerals are precious. I know that where they come from, and I'll assure you that I'm for onshore and everything I can, but if we have to go electric, we're gonna have to learn how to live with Russia and China and some of the other countries that have these metals that we require. And we're also going to be required to go with fossil fuels for a long time. And I know a lot of people think, well, he's for holding on to the Okefenokee Swamp, but he doesn't go the whole mile. I do go the whole mile. I really do. But I just am so happy, and I hope we will adopt this and that we will get it going tonight,
Thank you.
is what I'm hoping. Thank you.
Questions and comments? I have a few questions. I internally always have just kind of a baseline issue when we kind of sign on to proclamations or to anything that has far-reaching, I think, effect without having conversation with Representative Townsend, who represents this area on a statewide level, Senator Hodges, who represents this area on a statewide level, as well as Representative Saines. I also am very cautious to sign on to resolutions that affect other local communities and affect their ability to develop their community the way they see fit, without having a conversation with their commission, without having a conversation with their chair, and without having a conversation with their mayor, for which I know this was kind of sprung upon me. I knew nothing about it until I'd seen it kind of quickly before kind of coming into the meeting. So I guess my first question is, have you had conversations with all of those, I would say, entities? What has their conversation been back? And how does the resolution that we are talking about today match up with the resolution or any resolution that was passed by the actual city and county that this project would affect, or any contiguous counties or cities?
Those are very legitimate concerns, and I really appreciate you expressing them. So the first question was related to our state representatives and senators. We have had many conversations with our representatives in Atlanta. Thankfully, Representative Townsend, as well as Representative Deloach on the north end of Glenn County, are co-sponsors of House Bill 71, which is fantastic. There is not a sister resolution in the Senate right now, but we have spoken to Senator Hodges, who is very supportive of the Okefenokee Swamp. Senator,
Just so I know, the House Bill 71 would restrict further mining.
yes. So
It doesn't affect the actual project that is before them.
that's correct.
Okay.
It would prohibit EPD from issuing any future mining permits
Okay.
along Trail Ridge next to the Okefenokee.
Gotcha.
Yes, sir. So the resolution actually does recognize Representative Deloach and Representative Townsend for their co-sponsorship, which is great. And then Representative Saines, we've had a lot of conversations with Representative Saines. He is not a co-sponsor of the bill, but right now there are 50 co-sponsors of House, and it's a bipartisan group of supporters, including a lot of representatives along the coast, including Ron Stevens from the Savannah area and several others. The lead sponsor is Representative Darlene Taylor,
Mhm.
out of the southwestern part of the state.
And the state rep for the Okefenokee, is that Stephen?
That is Representative John Corbett.
Corbett.
Yes,
And
sir.
is Corbett signed on?
He is not a co-signer of the bill.
And has he expressed why?
Actually, we have had several conversations with him and I think the idea is, I have not had personal conversations with him, so I can't speak for him right now.
Okay.
But again, 68% of Georgians that have been polled really want the state to pass legislation that would protect the future of the Okefenokee Swamp.
Right.
And so this legislation doesn't just affect the communities in and around the swamp, but it's really for the entire state and the people that love and treasure the swamp itself.
In the resolution that would be before us this evening, I'm sorry, I don't have it in front of me. I didn't have it in my packet or whatnot. Does it speak directly to the project that is trying to move forward in the area currently?
It expresses concern for I have a copy here.
Appreciate you.
So, yeah, welcome. The resolution before you expresses concern for the impact that mining would have on the swamp. It does not call out the specific company that has a permit application before the Environmental Protection Division right now. And so, again, the language actually mimics the language that the Department of Natural Resources passed back in the late 1990s regarding the DuPont mine, which was a long drawn out fight. Back.
We did a resolution for that also.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
The
So-
same way we're doing tonight.
Great, thank you. And Mayor, I wanted to allow my friend Reverend Antoine Nixon to speak to you about the local sentiment regarding the swamp and regarding House Bill 71 and mining permit.
Thank y'all for having me here. From the local perspective, I can speak specifically from the commissioners. I believe they are actually for the mining. So that is where they sit on it. But as far as from the perspective of the community and being one of the leaders in the community, I'm all for, so the proposed mining is offering folks, the residents, about 100 jobs is what they're offering to sustain them coming in there as far as what they can bring economically to folks. And but frankly, I don't think that's even close to being worth putting the Okefenokee Swamp in any type of risk of anything about any type of job. I don't think money should make any decisions when it comes to things that God has created for us and for us to be stewards here to take care of it. So to be very honest, I believe the commissioner is actually for the mine, but as far as from a community perspective, there's plenty of us and local businesses and people who are standing up for this, and part of my duty to make sure that I stand being a pastor there in that community to make sure that we uphold what I think is God created and that we don't put it in any type of danger. So if the commissioners is actually for it, I don't think they really have the right to do it from a spiritual perspective. They surely have the authority to do it from the government perspective. But I don't agree with that. So from the local perspective, the commission, they were for the mine. A lot of that went unbeknownst to a lot of us. Me myself, honestly, 2 years ago was when I actually found out about it. I live a few miles from the swamp. Knew nothing about the mining being there. A lot of these things were kind of under the radar. And it just kind of came up. So I've been leading the fact there in my community, trying to get that word out. And hopefully the city of Brunswick will join along with us and the other community in helping us to protect it. As Mr. Cation said, they did so for the DuPont. So we've been fighting this thing for quite some years now. And hopefully we're trying to get into a place where we never have to go through this again. We can get, the protection that we need.
Thank you, Pastor.
Yes, sir.
My family was born and raised in Charlton County and in Folkestone. So we still have family down there, and the area is of extreme importance to me. I know the importance of it ecologically, but I do also weigh that in the space of the job prospects and the economic prospects that come before a community. The reason I say that is I'm blessed to be the leader of this city. I am not sure how I would feel about cities around Georgia deciding to write proclamations about the deepening of the port or Panova or other partners within our city who we are working directly with on a whole host of things. But to have that kind of come in, helicopter in from other areas without, honestly, I haven't talked to them without a one-to-one conversation with a fellow commissioner or a fellow mayor, that I would be making this decision tonight. So or thinking about this decision tonight. So one of my major question is, what is the median income for Folkestone, Georgia?
Do you have that? I don't have that with me. I'm Rena Peck. I'm
Okay.
head of Georgia River Network, and we're in charge of the State Water Trails program.
Okay.
From the Southeast Coastal Paddle Trail to Altamaha to the 120 miles worth of water trails in the Okefenokee Wilderness Canoe System. So that's our dog in the fight.
Yeah.
And the expectation from hydrologists that aren't paid by the mining group
Okay.
that water level in the swamp will go down more often for longer periods of time, potentially impacting the ability for people to recreate, which is what brings in the income. So that's 825 jobs that can be put at risk by mining that would harm the swamp. So really, it's bad for business.
And how
in
long
the
has the
area.
DuPont mine operated?
It did not operate.
It didn't?
No,
Okay.
sir. What happened there was then Secretary of Interior Bruce Babbitt said titanium is a common mineral. The Okefenokee is an uncommon swamp. This is not a good neighbor. And everyone backed him up from local to regional to national to international. And I do want to speak to the titanium element that is found there. And it's found on all of our beaches. Whenever you see the pretty designs on the beach that the waves left, the black sparkly sand, that has the elements in it that's used to make titanium dioxide, which is for making whiteout and this piece of white paper brighter. So the titanium metal that is more of a national defense piece, that comes from titanium sponge out of Japan, and those are our allies. So it's not a national security issue. Titanium is very common and can be mined somewhere else, not next to the Okefenokee. And that's what the resolution is about.
Yeah, no,
So, but
that's perfect.
feel free to ask me any questions, but I can get you the median
Okay.
income of Folkestone. But I will say that, affecting that area really is St. George and Pontiac too. Whatever you do to affect one part of the swamp affects all of it.
Mhm.
And so the state of Georgia does have a big dog in the fight, with Stephen Foster being one entrance. And then Okefenokee Swamp Park on the north is also state land with the Dixon Memorial Forest.
Perfect.
Thank you.
No, thank you.
Sure.
And how many other cities have signed on to this? And how many of those are surrounding or contiguous to actual, because I'm assuming the Charlton County Commission did not sign on.
The Charlton County Commission passed a proclamation of support prior to seeing any of the plans that have been considered by the EPD.
Support of,
General support for businesses and jobs coming in. So they really haven't made a declaration since the company itself has submitted its documents to the state and to the federal agencies for consideration.
and has the state rendered a decision?
No, sir, not yet. Right
Has-
now, there's a public comment period on
Okay,
the surface mining land use plan
okay.
that the company has proposed. But to answer your question about the other community members, Ware County and Waycross have passed a joint resolution. And we have copies of all of these, have passed a joint resolution talking about the significance of the swamp and the identity that it brings to that region and the need for protecting the swamp. They basically state very clearly that they need state and federal agencies and elected officials to help the local communities protect the swamp. The city of Valdosta has also passed a resolution. The cities of Kingsland, St. Mary's, and
And are theirs the same wording as ours?
no, sir.
it?
Yours actually reflects a lot of the activity that's been demonstrated again by our state elected officials as well as our federal our congressman and our senator. Senator Ossoff joined Congressman Carter to support the UNESCO designation. That was recently in the paper, which we were really pleased about. So again, that's an international significance, and they put their support behind that. So the resolution that you have before you just is an updated version that is specific to the regional importance of the swamp, but also reflects a lot of the support that has been generated for protecting the swamp long-term, and also concerns that have been expressed by scientists and researchers about the dangers of mining along Trail Ridge.
And I don't want to hog all the questions, so if there are questions, please ask. But do the other resolutions, and I've worked on the state level before, so I know the importance of resolutions when they come from local communities. And it also matters that these resolutions are stated very clearly to what we are talking about. And so I would be very interested, because House Bill 71 talks about future mining projects. There is a current mining project trying to be pushed forward for which state agencies and state leadership hasn't made a decision. And I guess I'm also I thought is there mining going on adjacent to the Okefenokee, kind of close? Or
No.
there is no mining going
No,
on
sir.
in the area
So,
at all?
Again, Trail Ridge is and I wish I had I actually have a graphic for you. I'm sorry, I meant to recognize the Satilla River Keeper here.
How you doing?
As well.
Operation.
Yes, thank you. There's and is that the same kind of mining?
Yeah.
That's a different kind of mining. Thank you.
So again, Trail Ridge is about 120 miles long. The Mission Mine is actually operated by the Moors. And it's near.
Thank you.
It's on a different associated ridge.
Okay.
Is there an alternate proposal?
So if you'll look on the backside of the colorful flyer that I just gave to you, you can see a map of Trail Ridge in the area that had been proposed for the DuPont mine. And then the area that the House Bill 71 would protect.
You mentioned scientific studies. What I can imagine, this is just being honest, when we leave this meeting tonight, if we already haven't gotten emails, there is another side of the story, right? There's another side to what you all are talking about. So I'm sure we will get some kind of contact from Twin Oaks or whomever. They are going to come with their University of Georgia scientist or whomever they have worked with, and they're going to put a bunch of papers in front of us. We can look at that and, take that for what it's worth. I would also love to be able to see what scientific evidence you all are working with and what scientific evidence you all are using to be able to match that up. The reason being is I know both sides of an issue can pay scientists to come up with whatever they would want them to. And so I would love to see
Appreciate it.
both sets of information to actually.
Happy to send that to you. I actually included in what I just handed out, a
Thank you.
letter that one of the leading hydrologists in the state of Georgia has issued to the governor expressing his concern. He's not paid by anybody. He's just a third party that has been following this process and has looked at the surface mining land use plan and is expressing his concern. He has a lot of documentation related to, again, the lowering of the water levels within the swamp and the likelihood that drought would increase. Increasing drought increases the likelihood of wildfires that aren't just contained in the swamp, but expand out to the silviculture areas and the agriculture areas as well as residential. So Dr. Rhett Jackson is his name, but I will be happy to provide you with additional information. But I did want to provide the kind of summary letter that he sent to the governor himself.
Okay.
Yes.
And Pastor, one more question for you. Oh, I was going to ask when they came and they talked about the jobs, you talked about the 100 jobs being produced. Did they talk about income of those jobs versus kind of what the median job is in the area? I know Folkestone is an area that is starved for economic development.
Mhm.
Not trying to say this is all the right economic development. I just don't want our local community to step into something that hinders economic development for another community and what they think is good for them. So what kind of jobs did they kind of speak to?
So I haven't heard as far as for the pay grade or anything like that, but what I can say is I'm an electrician by trade, by craft. And Folkestone is not a place known for mining. So they're not bound to hire anybody from Folkestone. They can give promisaries saying we're going to hire 100 people from Folkestone, but the likelihood of it is this. If you're hiring to come from a business perspective, you're going to hire people who already have experience. So they're not bound to hire that. And let me also say, I'm not against mining. And I'm also for my community, getting, well-paid jobs and things like that. But at the same time, I've been in that community I'm 46. I've been there for quite some time. I've been traveling out of town for work. We're used to it. I just don't think when you weigh both sides up that it's actually worth that. And to say that 100 jobs is not going to change nobody's life in general, just being specific to that. It's not going to change that community in the retrospect of what they're saying or what that would look like. So I don't know the pay grade, but if it's something similar to maybe what the pay is now, I work out of town. I work for CSX for 13 years and now I work build helicopters now. But I travel to do this. But in general, it's probably about $10 to $15 an hour. That's the pay that's there in Folkestone for work there. So I don't know with them what they will be offering. I have not seen that, but just in the likelihood of what they're offering, and they're not bound to give these people from that community, and just knowing how jobs work, you're gonna have a lot of people. If that dude was to go that way, they're gonna come in to that work. You'll have people from out of Jacksonville or close enough that could drive in and get those jobs. And from a business perspective, you would hire people who have the experience to do that than to just say, well, we're just gonna hire some people. And then at the end of the day, how long are they gonna be there? They're not gonna be there forever. And then what are we left with? And that is my main concern, the long end. What are we gonna be left with? Even if it did go down, what are we left with? They're not left to say that our community is gonna be exponentially better for that. So I don't know the actual pay grade. I'm just going off of what I think is most likely feasible about what that could turn out to be.
Yes.
Since we're we're starting to delve deeper into the economics of this, the economics now, my question is the economics now versus the economics if this were to happen. What's that picture? Paint that picture for us.
Say again, economics, what it is
The
now.
economics now
Mhm.
versus the economics were this to happen. Paint
Okay.
that picture for us.
When you say to
Is
happen,
it gonna
okay.
be, would it be better?
Okay,
Would it be worse? Would it not change anything?
okay. You mean if the mining went through?
Since we're looking,
right.
we're looking at it, we're on the economic side.
Okay.
I think you all have addressed somewhat the environmental side of it.
Mhm.
The ecological aspects or effects that would happen on it.
Mhm.
But now we're talking about the economics of this venture. Looking at Folkestone now, looking at Charlton County now,
Okay.
the economics now and the condition for the residents or for that community now versus the impact or economic impact that it would have on that community were this to happen.
Okay.
Take me from where we are now.
Mhm.
Am I gonna get better economically? Or am I gonna get worse?
Okay, I can't say honestly if we'll get better or worse. I will go off of this premise here that if the likelihood of them, for one, they would have to hire the people from Folkestone to actually get the jobs. How long would they stay? Would they lose their job because they don't have enough experience and all these things? There's a lot of variables in that to say whether it get better or if it would get worse. Quite honestly, it probably stay the same. At the end of the day, I also know that it's all about how you think, how your mind works. So to say that, hey, I'm gonna go get this job, who's to say that those residents are gonna keep the job if they're gonna actually hold on to the job? We also know that people kind of have an open door when it comes to certain types of work and things like that. They get on the job, oh, I don't really like that. And oftentimes it's not the money that makes the decision. They may make more, but that doesn't guarantee that they're gonna actually stay on that job. People will leave jobs. So probably at best, it may stay the same just because of the mindset of the people there. And I'm all for one, in order to really build a community, you got to build a mindset up first. Once we think better, we can actually do better. So money is not going to do that. So-
And I guess I asked that question, Pastor,
Yes, ma'am.
because we did bring in the tourism part of this
Mhm.
and the effect that, were this to happen, then it could have this effect on this side of tourism.
Yep.
I mean, and like the mayor said, somebody else can come in and say, well, it would open an opportunity for, jobs. It could bring, people that would migrate from other areas, perhaps Jacksonville and what you mentioned.
Yes.
They may not have had a reason to relocate to Charlton County or to
Mhm.
Folkestone. Now, because of the job opportunity, there may be relocation opportunity. So that's why I said what I said. Take me from now, show me, because you're asking us to sign this.
Mhm.
And so we need to have something that's going to make a difference in our decision-making process, or our understanding of why it is we should consider this or move forward on this.
Okay, so from a economic perspective, also on the other side of that, which is we also have programs that we're working with. Ms. Kim Bednarik is not here. She's director of the Okefenokee. We're working on a project to actually bring like a museum there, which is something that will also bring in like jobs and things of that nature. This is part also the World Heritage Sites and all these things. So when you bring in that side of it, then that naturally will subsidize some of the financial issues as a whole. From this premise, if you get something that's nationally recognized, like this museum and other things that's supporting the Okefenokee Swamp, well, then you'll get tourism and now you need hotels there. Once you get hotels, you need restaurants there. So you can bring all those things in without money, just by bringing in the right thing. So at the end of the day, I'm all for shining light, not shining anything, casting a shadow. I'm not casting a shadow on Twin Pines. I think there's just other ways that we can bring light into that community. And if we can get this museum and some of these other things that we're working on to get that, then that will also show the communities that we don't have to settle for that and take that route and put these things at risk, but that there's other opportunities that can come there. This is just one opportunity, which is what Twin Pines is offering. But there are also other aspects that we can take, and we should consider those things before we just automatically jump on something like that.
Give me an alternative to not mining at that location.
An alternative to not mine? What do you mean?
Where else can I do what I need to do here?
Oh, as far as
somewhere
work is concerned?
that with the mining process, an alternate location
That you can mind.
that presents me the same opportunity that this location presents to me.
I want to make sure I understand your question. An alternate location for
mine.
work? Oh,
Right, to mine.
for the miners to mine.
Yes,
Oh, I personally don't know where else they could go,
Okay.
to go and actually mine. I think Ms. Rena, she spoke there that, there's titanium, everywhere, but we don't have to do it necessarily right there. I think the problem is here, it's because of what's so profound in Okefenokee that, so it's actually its own, problem, so to speak. But here's the thing, before we were ever here, the Okefenokee had no problem. And because of its richness, now, if it wasn't as rich as it was, Twin Pines would not be interested in it, neither would DuPont be interested in it. But here's another factor for you. We wouldn't do this at Yellowstone National Park. We wouldn't actually put that at the Grand Canyon because these places are nationally recognized, which is why we're trying to get this place nationally recognized so that we don't put it at risk and put all these things there. There's other places to get money in general. A problem comes with us when we think we can only go into one place, oftentimes go into very poor neighborhoods and poor places and promising them something. But at the end of the day, you don't hold those promises. You're not guaranteeing us anything. This community has stood for quite a long time, going outside and working in all these things. And quite honestly, many of us who don't do it can do it. Part of the problem is us. We don't really want to go out there and get it like we should get it. So I don't want to make the Okefenokee feel like that's the problem because we don't have the jobs that we should get. Many of the problems is we won't go work. And so I don't want to just put it on that.
I want to say a couple things I don't want to hold us too long or any additional questions or comments. I think it would be imperative for me before we move forward on the resolution to do a couple things. Number one, I would want to have a direct conversation with the elected officials of this local community. I would take umbrage of somebody writing something about Brunswick and never having even tried to reach out to me to have the conversation that we are going to speak this way about your individual community. So I want to ask for that time to be able to do that, and in fairness to our other elected officials who they are dutifully elected by the people of Charlton County and have made another decision seemingly than maybe what we would be signing on to. And I want to paint them the courtesy of at least saying that we may be mentioning it. The second thing is I'm of the utmost in agreement with making it a national site. I haven't looked at House Bill 71, so I can't say that I absolutely support it, but I know I support Representative Towns and Representative Deloach and trust them and their leadership. But I do want a chance to be able to have a conversation with them as well. And to also make sure that as we look at this resolution, that we do the best we can to speak from a Brunswick focused local community to the things that matter to our citizens in our area. Upholding the Okefenokee is definitely one of those. Protecting the Okefenokee is definitely one of those. But when we start to delve into the specifics of something that is directly going on in a local community that is a local battle, I see some issues with directly mentioning that in a proclamation coming from another community. So with that, I want to open it up for any of my other fellow commissioners, and I don't have anything else.
Thank you. And I understand you want to do your due diligence. I am excited for y'all. I think this is a very huge leadership opportunity. The coast leads. 50 years ago, 52 years ago, the Coastal Marshlands Protection Act was created by a legislature to ban mining in our marshes, and the Georgia coast is very esteemed on the eastern seaboard for that protection that it provides. So here's the same opportunity, recognizing the Okefenokee National Wildlife Refuge. And it's a great opportunity for the coast to lead for Georgia, which y'all have with the Marshlands Protection Act, which you're already doing with your legislators' leadership. And y'all could be the first major city to make this resolution, and hopefully the city of Atlanta will follow you. Thank you.
I think this has been a good dialogue. I think it's been very helpful to have y'all here, but then also to just have the ability to have an open conversation about it. So, you know, I'd be willing to make a motion to defer this action taken on this resolution until, if y'all think the first meeting in March would be sufficient time, and I'll make that motion.
Hearing a first, do I hear a second?
Second.
Hearing a first and a second, all those in favor show by the usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, the motion passes, and we will be in touch soon with all of you. Thank you so much.
you.
Thank you for making the trip from Folkestone as well. Thank you, Pastor.
Yeah, I was concerned with some of this information to find out. I would be interested in all this treatment.
Thank you. Thank you.
Yeah, because we need to, yeah. Use your expertise.
City Attorney Corey, we are up for discussion, proposed amendment to chapter 22, the utilities ordinance.
That's correct. This is a first reading tonight. These are amendments brought forth by the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. From time to time, as the Joint Water and Sewer Commission identifies needs, they have to, because the ordinances that created the joint water and sewer are both county and city ordinances and was similar in nature. As they work through their processes and operations, there are time to time amendments they bring forward related to the operation of the Joint Water and Sewer Commission. Tonight's amendments are relatively simple. I do have a representative from the Joint Water and Sewer Commission here, Ms. Roberts. She's directly behind me. Good evening. She would be probably the best person to answer any technical questions related to the amendment. I can run through very quickly and just state that I worked closely with the attorney for the Joint Water and Sewer Commission and putting together this amendment. You should have the most recent changes updated in the packet. They are also seeking to have the county, implement similar amendments to those ordinances since ours kind of mirror each other. I think the primary part of this amendment is related to the rate resolution that they've changed. They've made amendments to that. In the documentation I provided with my ordinance amendment, there is a backup showing the red lines from the Joint Water and Sewer Commission as they were submitted to me, as well as the rate resolution and the changes they made therein. And I think the only other thing that doesn't necessarily relate to the rate resolution, they do remove some of the exemptions related to the application and connection and the payment of fees you would have to pay when you came to the Joint Water and Sewer to connect to the utility. And they also made changes, I think, outside the rate resolution to the level of leak adjustment determinations that would provide some more discretion, it appears, to the director, enabling them to look, right now, if it was $2,000 or less, I believe the director has discretion similar to the spending power of the city manager. He could look at that and say, that's a leak, I'm going to make that adjustment. They're increasing that from 2,000 to 5,000. From my perspective, I'll let Ms. Roberts correct me if I'm wrong. That would give a little bit more discretion to the director to say, leaks under 5,000, he can now review and make those necessary adjustments. With relation to the rate resolution, though, I would ask Ms. Roberts, if you all have any questions to that, please let us know.
So what about the discretionary judgment that the director may have as to the actual process of considering the leaks, or why the leaks happen, or how they happen? I asked this question because I had my own recent situation that still had to learn this, that one side of the meter is their responsibility, one side of the meter is my responsibility. All I knew was I looked out in my front yard and I had a puddle of water coming out the ground and going along the street and supplying cleaning for the entire street.
That's
And
all.
so I found out, but I mean, they came out, they were very diligent in coming out and helping me to get that resolved and stuff. And so I didn't even try to go through the process of having the bill considered. But my question would be, for me, I have the means to be able to do that. But what about the another citizen who may not have that means? And for me, the process of being considered for that is very cumbersome.
I can't speak to the process or the application, only to that they have increased the discretion of the executive director. I don't know if Ms. Roberts is prepared to speak to that process, but okay.
That's why I
Please.
just want to throw that in, Ms. Roberts. I knew you weren't gonna be able to do it.
Thank you, Mr. Corey. Mayor Johnson, commissioners, thank you for the opportunity to speak tonight. Commissioner Harris, in relation to your question, yes, ma'am, I'll be happy to help you with the leak process. As a matter of fact, we've taken great strides to simplify that, because I understand what you're saying. We don't even know how to start. Well, let me tell you what, there's a simple link on our website now that takes you to a leak adjustment form. You fill out some simple information. You attach a copy of your receipt from your plumber, or if you purchase the supplies yourself to make that leak adjustment or to make that leak repair, you attach those as well. So fill out that form, attach that receipt, send it in. Now, we do say to allow 60 to 90 days for processing. And the reason for that is because we need to see that leak go away. We need to see that water usage return to its normal level before we can make that leak adjustment on the account itself. The good news is we're working very hard to shorten that 60 to 90-day window. And part of the reason that we're doing that is because we are installing new water meters throughout our system. I don't know if the commission is aware of that. Commissioner Roll, I know in particular probably is because she's heard a lot about it at the board meetings. But those meters that we are installing actually have a data dashboard for the members of the office staff who can go in there and they can see what we call continuous usage. And that's typically what ends up being a leak. It could be for another purpose. It could be that there's a legitimate reason that a business or an individual is using water around the clock. But we can identify those situations, make the customer aware of those, and let the customer make the decision whether, yes, that's something that I know is occurring and it's not a problem for me, or, oh my goodness, that's a leak. Let me get a plumber out here to get that repair made so I can submit that leak adjustment form. Does that answer your question?
It does.
Okay.
And it was just an educational opportunity.
Absolutely.
To kind of, just kind of highlight it, because I've had others that have come to me and they're like really in a tizzy because they don't really know how to approach the process. And then they've been denied and they don't have a means to have paid that overage of that water flow and stuff. And so that's why I said, what is the discretionary process that has.
Now, as far as the denial is concerned, there is a process that's specifically laid out in the ordinance that we're not changing. So it would still have to meet the parameters that are laid out in the ordinance as far as granting them that leak adjustment. It's just the threshold that's being raised. And one of the reasons that we're raising that is with the new meters, we hope to make those identifications sooner. So those leak adjustment amounts are smaller. And in our experience, it's only been commercial establishments, restaurants, hotels, things of that nature that have those leaks over $5,000. So we are trying to lower that limit again to expedite the process of getting those residential customers those adjustments to their bills. Another piece you may need to know about is even after the adjustment is granted, the customer has the opportunity to sign up for a payment arrangement because we recognize if you have $1,000 water bill, okay, it's great that Joint Water Sewer gives you a $500 adjustment, but there's still that $500 left. So we give them the opportunity to sign up for a payment arrangement for that remaining balance as well.
Yeah, I was aware of that. I just didn't know if anything was being changed as far as the appeal process or reconsideration or after something has been denied or something.
Understood.
Thank you.
Yes, ma'am. I had some prepared remarks, but Mr. Corey seemed to cover everything well for me. I will let you know that the reason that we're making these changes, first of all, to the deposit policy is we are trying to make sure that we're customer focused. But in addition to being customer focused, as Mayor, you say about the balance and the baseline, we also have to be mindful that we are being entrusted with resources by our ratepayers. So we want to make sure that we're managing that risk appropriately as well. So it's that balance of customer friendly and managing that risk. And then we want to be consistent with other utilities, whether it's neighboring utilities or similarly situated utilities. That's what's brought us to the point where we're even reviewing the deposit language to see where do we need to make some changes, to make some tweaks. Don't know if you want to go through particular red lines or you just want the overview at this particular point. I know Mr. Corey is well versed in those details, but again, I'm happy to address those. We've already talked about the leak adjustment. And one other thing I want to stress is this does not change any of the rates that JWSC customers pay. This is actually a more customer-friendly policy because one of the changes that we have within the rate resolution is that there is an opportunity for a deposit to be waived. If we have a customer who's an existing customer within our system who has a good payment history with us, we have the ability now to waive that deposit. Whereas currently that opportunity doesn't exist because our ordinance requires for every account we collect a deposit. So that's one of the changes that's being made that I thought the board might appreciate.
Any questions or comments?
How do we get our deposit back?
If you believe that you meet the criteria for getting your deposit back, which is 36 months of consecutive payment with no late fees, we have a form on our website that says deposit return request. So if you'd like to fill that out, or I'll be happy to leave a card with you if you'd like to send me
Why
an
don't
email.
you
I'll
just
be
figure out some way to reimburse the folks without them
Yes.
having to go through that?
We've actually started that process on a monthly basis.
That's
We
what the
have,
computer is supposed to do. for
well,
us.
you would think so. Yes, sir. Our software is not quite where we would like for it to be, but we have some labor power that we're putting behind that. We actually have a staff member who every month, once a month, as a matter of fact, she just did it today, goes through all of the deposits that are still on accounts. And if we recognize customers, either 3 years for residential or 5 years for commercial accounts who have met that threshold, she will apply those to the customer's account. So it may have happened to you without you even recognizing it, but we'd be happy to check on that for you.
I'd be happy to have a resource.
Fantastic. Yeah, wouldn't we all? Yes. sir. Wouldn't complain in the least, right?
Any additional comments or questions? This is just discussion only, right? Yeah. Wonderful. I think Commissioner Booker has a comment on this issue.
When they don't notify us, well, that's on us. That doesn't go through the meter, so the customer is not. I don't have my back. If it's on the water student side of the meter. then it doesn't- And they don't know it, and that's why. Absolutely. That's information that should be shared with the customer. Yes. We have to come out and recognize where it's already on the consumer side. Opportunity to make that. Right. When they don't see it. Yeah. I told you this out. I told you. She told me they and then the third time, I paid it off. I did, but I was expected because they found out on Friday. I didn't find out until really Sunday. Well, actually Monday. They never said anything. And so. But they never said it. They came out. I got no email. I think they were saying they were supposed to do email or no call. So all that more from Friday until Monday. I have to see okay, even though I requested it to be adjusted. And I'm a commissioner. So I could imagine if it's an elderly person, somebody else, a young person. Well, Jay Sellers told him to look at it. Still work. I feel not. Elderly person. You know, to be taken advantage of.
Thank you. Thank you so much.
You know, let me say this, there is a review process down there that you folks will identify a leak. There was at one time, I hope you still have that process. If a customer's bill showed that there was reason to think there was a leak, you would
Yes, sir.
tag in the doors at one time.
We don't tag the doors. What we do is we put a note on the bill. It says continuous consumption recognize, there's a note that goes on the bill
It
itself.
used to be a
that
tag,
I-
and so that's been changed.
Right, no,
too.
sir, we don't do the door tags.
Yeah.
No, sir.
I think that tag was pretty doggone effective too.
All right.
It's hard to argue with that tag.
Yes, sir.
It
But as I say, once we get the meters installed, we'll have this information available to us and we'll be able to see next day if someone has 24-hour usage. So we'll have some great tools at our.
Can I,
disposal.
oops, can I ask just
Oh,
a quick
yes.
question?
City manager. Yeah.
Definitely,
Does
yes,
this
ma'am.
have any impact on sewer charges being charged on on a sprinkler system?
If you have an irrigation meter, you should not have sewer charges on an irrigation meter. So if there's someone in that situation, again, they're welcome to contact me and I'll be happy to look into that.
It's perfect. Thank you so much. And I think we have one more public comment. I don't know if it's on this issue, but thank you so much. There we go. Come to the front, please, and give us your name.
My name is Romaine Hanson, and actually, I just wanted to, comment on something you were mentioning. How would, you notify the public that there is consumption of water?
Thank you for that question. If the customer does have one of the new meters, what we'll do is we'll reach out to them by text message. We have what we call a podium alert. It's a software platform. And we'll reach out with a text message letting them know. Right now, we are occasionally sending letters, but it's such a small sample size because we don't have all of the meters installed yet. But we plan to do that with some more technology rather than waiting for the letter to actually get to the customer. Because in Commissioner Booker's case, as he said, that water ran for 2 more days where the time for that letter to get there would be 3 days, 5 days, even a week.
And something similar to actually happened to me, and then before you know it, my bill was over $1,000.
Right.
And it was not on my side.
Okay.
But I'm not sure how I ended up with the bill.
We don't have executive session, right?
So
We do. Okay, so we'll let you guys go
But
offline.
I want to say something really quick. If you live in the city, and same thing with Commissioner Booker, y'all can always feel free to call me. I'm always answering the phone. And what happens is when I get complaints from residents, myself and LaDonna, we communicate very well, and within an hour, she gets the issue resolved. So do you have my contact information? Okay, I'll get this. Go ahead. Who was?
Well, hold on, let's take this offline.
Okay.
Can we,
Okay.
can I get a motion to adjourn for executive session for the purpose of litigation?
Motion to adjourn for the purpose of litigation.
Hearing the first and second, all those in favor, show by usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, we are adjourned for executive session. There we go. We have returned from executive session. No action was taken. We will now, oh yeah, there we go. There we go. We'll now motion to adjourn. Hearing the first, do I hear a second? Second. All those in favor, show by usual sign of aye. Aye. All those opposed, the same. Hearing none, this motion is adjourned. Ugh.